took me down to Zurich to some of the best shops in town, bought me 2 suits and, you know, half a dozen shirts and all kinds of stuff, you know. And now this is where people don't understand wealth. My aunt never in her life had a credit card. She never carried money. She didn't have to. When she went in the store, they said, "Hello, Mrs. Fisher." And she would say, "I'd like this, 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 and this, and this. Send it to my house, and then you can send me a bill." And that was the end of the transaction. She'd walk out to her chauffeur-driven limo. Now, people don't understand this kind of a mindset, you see. And this is what you have to understand. When people become that wealthy, there is only one avenue left: power, or political power, or absolute power. And this is what these people want. They're all megalomaniacs. They want to control the world. And George Bush Sr. told us who they were in his speech. He said, the 1,000 points of light. Isn't it interesting that Bones has just about 1,000 members? Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's, you know, I could not understand my aunt's methods of transaction until she explained it to me. And she said, look, she says, everybody knows who I am in Zurich. She said, I don't need any money. She said, if I go somewhere, they know who I am, and if I incur an expense, they'll send a bill. You see? Mm-hmm. Now, just imagine if you have that kind of wealth, what could you possibly want more? She had a chauffeur-driven, very fancy car. Her husband, my uncle, had 2 Ferraris. You know, isn't it difficult to understand that?
Well, I see what you're saying. They want power. They want. I mean, they have the money, but you know what? I guess what I'm asking is, they already have us in their clutches, and I don't know how.
Yes, they want to consolidate the control worldwide.
All right, so they do that, but they're already in control of the world. I mean, we know that they control the world. We know they control.
Yes, but it's unruly. They can't walk around and say, shoot that guy, I don't like him. You see, they want that power. That's what they want. And if you look at how they're going about it, they want to create a pyramidal society. And what they want to do is very simple. They want maybe 2.5% of them running the entire world. So you got a pyramid, and on top you got a little tiny point, and that's 2%. Underneath that comes about 8% of bureaucrats to run everything. And underneath that comes about 12% of police and military forces to enforce their power and to isolate them from the general public. And this is what they want. I mean, look, this is what George Orwell wrote about it in his book 1984.
Absolutely.
You know, and this is what they want. They want absolute, total control. Nothing less, nothing more. And it's a very, very scary thing, and we really don't need it, period.
So what do we do, Adrian? What do you
Well,
suggest?
you know, obviously there are many issues to that question. In my new book, Money, I have 2 chapters in which I talk about personal things and political things that we must change in order to prevent this. You know, the political issue is the easier one to tackle than the monetary and social one, because we know how politicians behave, we know what makes them tick. we have in this country, more so than most anywhere else in the world, a political class. And this political class has a re-election rate of over 85%. They are professional politicians, and professional politicians are always indebted to the people who can ensure their re-election. In other words, the moneyed interests.
Right.
There's no question about this. Disraeli said this, in the 1800s, and he was absolutely right. And so what we have to do, we have to disenfranchise these people, and the only way to do that is with absolute term limits. Throw all the boogers out, every one of them.
And how did we do that? Because, look, we cannot go to the polls and win because they fixed the polls.
Well, not only did they do that, they fixed the elections.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what recourse do we have? Do you think that we're going to be able to get, what are we, 600 million people, 300 and some million people in the United States out there,
right.
Protesting and rioting?
No, I don't think that'll do any good.
No,
I don't. Just call out the police and beat the people up.
And so what do we do?
No, I think there are two routes to go here. We have the next presidential election coming up in about a year and a half, and we can do one of two things. Everybody vote for any party except the Republicans or Democrats, or else nobody votes at all. Nobody votes at all is a better case scenario because then they are really in deep doo-doo. If nobody votes, or let's say 10% of the population is all that votes, the credence of anybody they put in power is zero. So I think, those are two scenarios that will work. Lonnie, I want to be perfectly straight with you and your listeners. It'll never happen.
Mm-hmm. You're right, it won't.
There are so many people in this country, and I talk to them every day, that are so brain dead on the issue of politics. It's absolutely brain dead on the issue of politics. It's absolutely frightening.
And they have the mentality, Adrian, where they think, well, I don't need to worry about it. Somebody else is going to do it.
Yeah. Look, this is amazing. I was at church last week, and I was talking to a man, a really nice man. And he said to me, well, he says, I'm very conservative. He says, I always vote Republican. And I almost had to laugh. I didn't say anything nasty to him. I said, isn't it interesting, I said, that the Republicans are carrying out the mandates of the Democrats, and the Democrats are not in power. He says, what do you mean? I said, well, we have the biggest deficit in history. He says, I said, we have the biggest trade deficit in history. We have our rights being stripped away by things like the Patriot Act. He said, oh, the Patriot Act is wonderful. I was dumbfounded. This is not a stupid man, and he's a good man. Mm-hmm. He probably votes this way because his father voted that way, or maybe his mother, People don't even look at issues.
I know this is true, and that makes the situation, Adrian, all the worse, because
it does.
The people like us and my listeners and people you speak to, they know better. But we are just a small band of people, and I don't know how we're going to get out there and stop them. I don't know if we can stop them. I do know that we are enslaved. I know it's going to get worse. We're going to have to make this decision very soon about whether or not we will accept the chip in order to live.
When I was in college, and I had a professor, a philosophy professor, and I really liked him. We got along very, very well. And I didn't do well in college at all because I was too contrary and it was too boring. But he told me something that's always stuck with me, and that is absolutely the perfect truth. He said, look, Adrian, the world is full of people all of those people, 96% haven't got a clue as to what the heck is going on. 3% of the people know what's going on but do nothing about it. And the rest of the people know what's going on and do something about it, and that's not enough.
Yep.
And that's the situation. Heck, I would love to sell of my Abali or money. I'd love to sell 100,000 books, because then I would know that it would have a real impact. But these people control the book selling sources. They control book distribution. They control if and when a book will be reviewed. You know, I've written, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 books dealing basically with these types of issues. I have never succeeded of getting one of these books reviewed by any major newspaper.
Well, let me just kind of enrich what you just said, because I write about the same thing. I mean, I also write novels, and I put those situations in novels. But A, all the media in the world, the mainstream media, are owned by the elite, so they're not going to pick up these kind of books. B, I have 16 books out there, and some are by traditional houses. But I'm going to tell you what, Adrian, it's very difficult to even get published today, especially if they know your stance on the media, and they know that you know, and you're writing about the fact that the elite are in control. I mean, so how do we get these books out? In order to get into a big chain store, and you know this, you have to have a big publishing house behind you, and you have to have their distribution system, which determines what they will show bookstore managers to buy.
Well, we have a moment left. I wrote a book called Our Political Systems, and it deals primarily with countries that have two-party political systems. I brought it out 3 months before the last presidential race. It is a really well-written book. It's an excellent book. I thought, heck, I bring this out just before the election. People will read this book, and they will find out how the elections are run, who owns the Presidential Debating Commission, and all of that stuff, everything. Do you know that book was blacklisted? Mm-hmm. This is really interesting. I sold almost immediately when the book came out about 50 or 60 books in Washington, D.C. Within 3 days after that, the book was blacklisted with every distribution channel in the United States. They blocked that. I could not get a book review any place. I couldn't do anything to get that book out to the public to let them know it was there, except, by mailing out flyers myself or,
right.
or on my own site. So they control book distribution completely.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Absolutely. And they control what's going to be published. That's why PODs, print on demands, came into existence. But, I feel many times the frustration of we are banging our heads against the wall. But I honestly believe that if we all got together and did something, maybe they would listen to us. I don't know. But
well, we can certainly try.
Let me ask you this. Now, I know you're a Christian man, so let me ask you this. Do you think that the Illuminati are making prophecy come true, or do you think it is fulfilling its natural course?
Well, I think that there's what does the Mason call it? The great architect of the universe, and I think he's the guiding thing behind this, and he, the devil does what the devil does, but the devil in the end is going to lose, isn't he?
Well, certainly the Lord is going to be victorious.
There you go.
What do you see coming up real soon here?
Well, I think the next thing that's going to happen is the collapse of the dollar. I think the dollar is, we know last month, as of the 20th of last month, the M3 money supply is not being reported on any longer.
Right.
We also know, I have confirmed by 7 different sources that the United States Treasury Department was astounded when the Federal Reserve System requested the printing up of $2 trillion in greenbacks. If this is indeed